So the Mongol Rally, it's a trip that you're limited to engine capacity, 1 liter or less, and basically a junk car, underpowered, and we're driving it from the UK to Mongolia. And the way this came about, I had a buddy who grew up home together. He was in Canada. We have some friends over there, and he was out and had a night out, got really drunk, and rang me. I think I was 3 a.m. my time, and he's just like, Mez, I've signed us up to something, and you can't say no. And I'm like, all right, like right there and then. He's like, you need to promise me we're going. I'm like, yep. The next day, we jump on a call. He's hungover and is like, look this up. This is what we're doing. There was 6 people in total, 3 tickets that were booked that night. Only 1 person actually committed the next day, and all the Canadians pulled out. All our Aussie mates came together. So James, Borko, Darko, Draz, Sandy, and myself. The other guys bought the tickets off the Canadian dudes, and we ended up finding 3 K11 Micras in the UK. And these Micras, we kind of bought them sight unseen through a mechanic in the UK, and it was the most weirdest buying experience. He was a Romanian guy working in the UK as a mechanic, and he had done the trip previously, so he was just helping people out, and he was just sending us pictures of these Micras going, yep, this one will do, this one will do. And they're the most basic cars you'll ever get into. Some of them came with air conditioning, some of them had wind-up windows, some of them had power, some carbureted, some fuel injected. They were as basic as they came. So we bought these cars, and the idea of the trip is to make it fun and adventurous. So I just ordered all these parts to support this car, sent it to the workshop in the UK, and we just, fingers crossed, rocked up that 1, our cars were going to be there, and 2, the parts were going to be there and they're going to be correct. Thankfully they were. So we all flew over, met the guy, parts, cars, everything were there. We ended up getting an Airbnb, country town, UK. And we took these 3 Micras, all the parts there, went to their local, I guess, Home Depot for us, Bunnings, their trade store. We bought tools, spray paint, anything like mesh for grills to hot these things up. So yeah, we painted these cars at the front of some Airbnb at some street, got these cars looking ridiculous, as they should. Started our journey, headed over down through the UK. So these cars are right-hand drive. In the UK, they drive on the left-hand side of the road, but Europe flipped that side. So we are now driving right-hand drive cars on the right-hand side of the road, and this just spun our whole world around completely because usually you can see as you're driving, got to overtake a car and you've got view, where now you're trying to get around a truck and you are literally, going in blind, or unless you have someone in the passenger seat, guiding you. Most of the time they were asleep. But yeah, so we head into Europe, take a boat over into France. We done a whole bunch of countries. There is a launch party that happened in Prague, and this launch party is we had no idea the scale. It was like an abandoned, bunker shelter looking farm place, and there are cars everywhere, like overgrown bushes, everyone's parked everywhere, tents are set up, and these makeshift stages, and it is just like a bush doof car festival, mud everywhere. And yeah, we have a quick launch party and start this trip. I think we ended up doing 32 countries over, it was the 8 weeks. So the idea of the trip is you have a start line, which was Prague, a finish line, Mongolia. And that start finish line, there was no set route, your route, however you guys want to say it. There's no set route. You guys just go, and whoever makes it there first loses. Because the idea is, you take the longest time, you get the most adventure out of it, and you might see people along the way going this way, that way, and you might leave them for a week and then bump into them over that side. So it's really cool the way they plan that bit out. We decided to head down from Prague down through Turkey and through all the Stan countries. The Stan countries is where it gets interesting. Not many people venture into this part of the world. Really cool place to go to. I highly recommend it. The way you get into some of these countries is unreal. So we have registered cars in the UK with an Australian license or passport, But these cars, the way to get them into the country, you need to show documents, and only one person who is the registered owner can go through these border crossings. And the passengers all have to get out and walk. So we've gone into these random stand countries, and three of us are walking, three of them are driving through with the cars, and these lines are long. You're waiting sometimes 6 hours to get through a border crossing, and you have village people walking through with, shopping from the country before. You have trucks that are hauling stuff through. The time that it takes to get through is so exhausting, but we end up having so many fights with people in line trying to push in. Yeah, that side of things is a bit phenomenal. We get to a spot where we're trying to decide do we go up through Russia, but our visas only allow us to go into Russia once. So we can't go in and out. And on our route, we have to go into Russia at least once. Or we go down through Iran. And, as we all know, Iran's a bit of a hot spot, and it's a bit of a hard place to get in and out of, and a bit dangerous. So the third option was to take a boat across, I think, the Caspian Sea. The Caspian Sea is a kind of a giant lake that has its own current and waves. It's huge. Over to Turkmenistan. Not many people have heard of a country called Turkmenistan. This country is the second most dictatorship country after North Korea. 10,000 visitors per year at most. And it is a wild contrast. You get into this country, and the way they operate is that everyone has to have something to do. Don't want to really get into politics here and stuff, but you go to one desk and there's one, you have these forms to get into the country. The top section, one person will stamp that before you have to go to the next window, stamp on that piece before you get to the next window. And after another, 5-6 hour border crossing event, we're finally into the country, and it is wild. We are driving basically through almost slums at this point. There's like TP tent looking things, villages that kind of decrepit, but the most happiest I've ever seen people. Kids running around. That whole cliche thing is where the least you have, the more happy you are. The really interesting is when you get into the main city of Ashgabat. The whole city is brand new roads, 6-lane highways. They've got people sweeping them, green grass. Every building is white and gold. Massive signs like you've just gone into Vegas. It is rich. Everything is white, gold, marble. But the funny thing, it's empty. There is no one there. There's people working. There's hotels that are open, but these 5+ star hotels have no one in them. And I mean, they have people. There's 10,000 people a year. It just doesn't make sense. So we're paying, I think it was about $100 USD for this 5+ star resort. And we walk in treated like kings type thing, because they never really see people in this town. And we're just blown away from the contrast of how poor one side is to how white and gold the other side is. There was a story that the prime minister or president of the country ruled that only white cars were allowed in the city for a period of time, so no other color cars could go into this town. So that was really interesting to see. From there, we drove up through to Turkmenistan, and they have this crater in the ground called the Gates of Hell. And it is a giant gas leak that they were mining, because Turkmenistan is very rich in oils and gas and fuels and stuff. So yeah, they were mining, they hit gas and they couldn't contain it. So this crater in the ground, they were like, well, we'll just let it air out. Hopefully it was just a pocket. It didn't work. So what they decided is, we'll light it on fire. We'll burn the gas out. And they lit this crater on fire. And I can't remember the date of when they said they lit it, but I think it was like the 50s or 60s. And it is still burning to this day. And we had a meat party there with the whole group. So there was like 50 cars plus that rocked up to this Gates of Hell. And it is a giant burning crater in the middle of nowhere that is a live edge. You have a little fence around it that you can stand over, and it's a live edge to a crater that you could easily fall into. So we're sitting on the edge of this crater, as you do, having some drinks and partying. Yeah, from there, we entered in all these other stand countries. We drove down the Silk Road, the tallest highway / largest drug route in the world. Some of the guys got altitude sickness. We were warned from some of the people that had heard stories from the year before of the Mongol rally that were gotten shot at, because this borders, so we're in Tajikistan and this borders Afghanistan. And they said, as you drive down this road and it gets dark, make sure you're not in sight of the Afghanistan, because, war conflicts and stuff, they might have people just randomly shooting over. Needless to say, we were terrified. we actually camped on the side of a mountain, had our cars blocking us. So, just in case anything happened, there was military just patrolling those roads the whole night. We felt safe, but at the same time, like, anything can happen. It's, places where you wouldn't expect anything. So, but again, the same rich people that were there, you go through these towns and everyone's living off the land and the water that runs through there. It is a beautiful sight to see. From there, heading up through Kazakhstan, over into Russia, then into Mongolia. Finally made it into Mongolia. We did some dirt rallying. The trip through Mongolia is quite wild. Again, it's one of those cities that there is nothing all around. Their main produce over there is horse instead of cows, and they say the cows are not smart enough to dig through the ice on the ground to eat the grass, so the horses are smart enough, so that's their main produce. Not great. Would not recommend. Don't eat horse. And we end up finishing the trip in the actual finish line was just above Mongolia in Russia. They made a finish line there, get the cars on there and light some flares and fireworks. And it was a great trip. Overall, I would recommend everyone to do it, because this was in 2019 and we all know what followed after 2019. Just at the end of that, we were the most free we could ever be in this 10,000 mile trip one way, which we did drive back through Russia after that. Once we got back home, we were in lockdown. It was the most lockdown we could ever be. So don't take these trips for granted. Make sure you get out there. Or don't take your time for granted. Make sure you get out there and you have an adventure. So this trip, we took the full 8 weeks to do the rally part. We drove this Nissan Micra for about 6 months. We ended up driving all the way back through Russia. Did some of the European countries. Went to Ukraine for a little bit in it, visited Chernobyl and all these wild places that you just hear about, and it's very surreal seeing them. And we ended up getting towards Christmas, and we had to head back home, and we jump on the next year, the 2020 rally, before COVID was announced. So we jump on the rally page and say, hey, we're getting rid of our car. Does anyone want to buy it? We ended up meeting a guy at an airport in Germany, and he bought our car right there and then. We grabbed our bags out of this car, put them on our backs, jumped on a plane.
This month of VINwiki content is brought to you by Premier Financial Services, and they are the perfect partner in your journey to own your dream car, because their Simple Lease is the most powerful tool in the world of exotic car financing. You'll get all the benefits of a leasing structure, like lower payments and better tax treatment, along with everything we love about a normal exotic car loan, where you can trade in and out at any time, always know where you stand thanks to their amortization table, and accumulate equity for whenever you're finished and ready for the next car. And Premier is great because they're wholly owned and backed by First Financial Bank, which means they have more buying power than any other exotic car bank or collector car bank in the United States, and their customer service is unmatched. Also, rates are lower than they have been in a very, very long time, so it's never been a better time to reach out to Premier, talk to their representatives, learn what you can pre-qualify for, and let them help you own the car of your dreams with Premier Financial Services.